welcome to the April 2nd Board of Selectmen's meeting. Just a couple of reminders. Again, we are conducting this meeting remotely. My name is Robin Hunter, and I am the chair of the Board of Selectmen. And what I am going to do is call the name of each of the members of the Board of Selectmen, and please respond in the affirmative that you are in attendance of this meeting. Bob Springett.
Here. Yes.
Ron Jeffries.
Affirmative, here.
Next, I am going to call on the staff that will be participating in this meeting Chris Dwelly.
Present.
Kate O'Brien.
Present.
And I think that's all the staff. And Mona DiCillo.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. We do have some anticipated speakers on the agenda this evening. So I will also ask them to confirm themselves. Jim Rapetti, the town moderator.
Here.
From the Board of Health, I have Kay Peterson.
Here.
I have Stephen Kruskal. You have to unmute yourself. He's trying to say here, but you need to unmute yourself. All right. And I don't see the chair has not signed in yet of the Board of Health. So, once again, I am just going to remind you that this open meeting of the Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th. And we're doing this due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth and due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Just a couple of etiquette items. So I, as the chair, will introduce each speaker. Any vote that the Board of Selectmen make will be done by roll call. So each member of the Board of Selectmen will affirm whether or not they're voting affirmatively or negatively with the vote. We will also have public comment. The public comment will begin after I make these introductory remarks. Anybody who would like to participate in public comment, if you have connected via a computer, you will notice that there's a little icon that says raise your hand. If you press that icon, I can call on you. If you have called in rather than connected through your computer, we ask that you send an email to kobrien@doverma.org, and that email will go to Kate, and she will let us know that you have a comment that you'd like to make. And again, the email address is on the agenda, but let me repeat that for you. It's K, as in the letter K, OBRIEN @doverma.org. I now looking at the agenda, you were supposed to do that 24 hours ago, but in any event, I will now open the meeting to the open session or citizens' comments. Are there any comments that citizens would like to make? So I don't see any hands risen. And Kate, did you get any emails?
I have not. Yep.
Okay. All right, so then we're going to move on to item 1.1 of our agenda this evening, and that's the COVID-19 update. And I am going to turn things over to Chris Dwelly, who will give us an update, and perhaps also the Board of Health can give us an update. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The town has continued to work diligently over the past week since we last met, ensuring that we have our appropriate preparedness steps and plans in place for what may come in the coming days and weeks, as well as ensuring that we're meeting the service delivery demand and need demand that we see presently in the community. So a few quick highlights that I'll touch upon before I turn it over to the Board of Health is our primary focus this week has really been, as a task force, focusing on how ensuring that we are equipped and able to respond to the escalation of cases that are anticipated to come over the next 2 weeks. As folks may or may not be aware, they anticipate that beginning April 10th, and then I think 2 weeks for a 2-week period, they're anticipating that these cases are really going to peak, and it's going to put quite a demand, certainly on the state, on hospitals, on organizations, on staff. And we've been working through scenarios on what we would do as we see cases increase locally. So again, we've been doing that with our Board of Health, with our EMS administrator, with our public safety folks, with our full task force to make sure that that we are prepared. One of the things that we've been doing this past week that has been led by Janet Claypool, our COA director, is she has reached back out to our volunteer pool, the individuals who have signed up so far, which is nearing 100 at this point, which is fantastic, to identify if anyone has medical experience. And what that does is that helps us create a pool so that if and when we start to see more people test positive for the virus or find themselves in quarantine, and as our current nurses and case managers who are managing these individuals and this tracking, as they become more overwhelmed, we want to make sure that we have individuals in the queue that can help pick up for that increased demand. In addition, we're making sure that we have proper protocol and procedures in place for the likelihood of increased demand in terms of food delivery and prescription delivery and other types of deliveries to people who are really going to be homebound and really going to want to stay inside and not able to even go outside or go to a grocery store. So those are our main focus areas over the past 7 days, and they have been going well. And I feel like we're in a good place. We continue to plan, we continue to prepare. One of the things that we did mention in communication with the state in the form of a letter that we signed on to the governor was really stressing the importance of this notion about making sure that statewide there are facilities available for either healthy individuals or individuals who have the disease or need to be quarantined. The idea being that there are specific and designated locations where individuals can go if they need to, wait out their 2-week period. So that's something that, local boards of health and local communities are acutely aware of the need and are really, pushing on the state and emphasizing with the state that this is something that is needed yesterday. So that's been our focus. Along with that, we continue to just regularly communicate updates with individuals about everything that we're doing. We're continuing to push out new forms of updates, such as video updates. I met with Dover Sherburne Cable TV this week to give an update on what the town's been doing, and Kate will be reaching out to some folks, leaders in the community, as well as staff to do some, just general video updates and hey, here's what we're doing during this crisis, just to continue to update people in various forms and just to provide, an opportunity for folks out there in town to be able to, view from home as to what the community is doing. So that's what I have at this point. We'll talk more later on in the agenda about town meeting and town election.
So I'm wondering if, Ms. Bob, would you like to give an update as the selectmen's liaison? You're on mute.
I think Chris gave a pretty thorough report on where we are. I think that many of the things are going pretty well. I think there have been a couple of things that we need to work on, and again, it's more in the process of just being prepared. And the Board of Health will probably talk about this more, but I mean, we definitely need to make sure that we have sort of the the processes nailed down when we have to issue orders to individuals who are quarantined. We have to make sure that's smooth. And then I actually think that people are doing a good job, but we gotta make sure that the people who are doing the contacting and the contact tracing as we get in, should we need to do this, are they have enough resources to pick up what we think will be an increasing load. So far so good, but I think, the real test will be in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Chris, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I failed to mention, and I just did want to highlight for the board and for everybody who's joining us, we are accompanied by Representative Denise Garlick, who's with us this evening. The representative has been an incredible partner, certainly for us over these past few weeks, is regularly checking in with us, and has been really a fantastic communication point between conveying, our needs here locally on the ground in town to the folks up at the State House. So I wanted to thank her for that. But I also wanted to mention that, she has made herself available if anyone this evening, the board included, has any questions or any needs as it relates to, what's going on at a state level. And I'd also offer up, Madam Chair, if it'd be all right, if perhaps, maybe there are a few things that she might want to say at maybe the end of at the Board of Health update, or perhaps now if there's anything that she'd like to add.
Right, so would you like to add something? We would love to hear about what's going on at the state level.
So good evening to everyone. I hope everyone and your loved ones are well. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. So as you can imagine, there are many, many things going on at the state level, but I wanted to separate out for you the work that I'm doing. So in the House of Representatives, the Speaker has 5 members who are on the COVID-19 team, and I am one of those members. And my charge is to be the liaison between the House of Representatives and the command center, that is being the commander of which is Mary Lou Sutters. And so I am spending my days working very hard with my colleagues on the issues of their constituents and their municipalities. You may see that there is legislation moving. At this point in time, that legislation is primarily generated by the governor, and under the governor's state of emergency powers, there is many ways that the administration can be very nimble in what they're doing and what they're suggesting and how to move forward. And the legislature is meeting informally. What that means is they're not bringing the majority of legislators into the State House, but under informal procedure rules, legislation can be brought forward. If it is questioned by any one representative, that legislation cannot go forward. But in the chamber is the person who is on the rostrum as the acting speaker, the chair of third meeting. There is a Democrat, there is a Republican, and then some other representatives are entering the building. And that is how the legislation is being handled. So the things that you are seeing presented and are being passed because there is unanimous agreement between the parties, because any one person could stop that. I can answer specifically things, but I mostly wanted to be on the line. I thank Chris, he's always so gracious. I wanted to thank him for his comments, but most of all, I wanted to let you know I was here, I am listening, and I will do anything that the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and the other leaders of the town believe will be helpful to the town of Dover in this really uncertain and unsettling time. And most of all, on a personal level, I wish you all good health. Take good care of yourselves.
And we really appreciate you participating in this meeting this evening. I found your emails that you send out very informative. They have a lot of really good information. So I really appreciate you keeping us all in the loop of what's going on at the Commonwealth level. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Now the Board of Health, I'd like to get an update Dr. Peterson or is it Dr.
Yeah.
Kruskal or Mr. Kruskal?
Dr. Kruskal.
One of you going to give an update this evening?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you.
I would say that Chris and Bob gave excellent summaries of what we're doing. I think I'll just add a few little details. One is that we continue to push on social distancing in whatever way we can think of. And it's interesting how little ways to tweak that keep coming up. Steve Kruskal the other day it dawned on him that there are all these keypads around town and ATMs and the post office and so forth. And just thinking about making sure those are clean, but between people using them as an example. We're also talking with the superintendent about some of the teens and what they're doing, which is less than social distancing, I would say at times. And if anyone realizes that there are other ways that we could be pushing further on this, please let us know, because it's very important in terms of preventing future cases. I want to add a little something about the work that we're doing with EMS. There was a guidance this week from the Office of Emergency Management Services or Emergency Medical Services about ambulance services developing the ability to or the authority to encourage people below the age of 55 who have COVID to stay at home if they meet certain criteria rather than being transported to the hospital. This is going to be very important because the hospitals are becoming increasingly full, and though it's not a critical problem right now, it will be very soon, and we'll need to keep people at home as much as we can safely. So we are going to talk more about that. The ambulance guidelines are very clear, but what we need to talk about really is and Chris alluded to this, is how do we manage these people who are sick at home and who in other times would be in the hospital? How do we kind of keep track of them and make sure that they're in touch with their primary care physicians, and if they can't be, can we provide some support for them? And think about things like food and medication and a variety of other things. But I would say this is something that is unimaginable to all of us. I don't think any of us have ever considered anything like this. So it's hard to know, it's hard to anticipate all the problems, but we're meeting to try to think of all those scenarios we possibly can and identify the questions that need to be answered. On a somewhat more cheerful note, the Council on Aging is doing an amazing job at providing support to the seniors and sort of maintaining some of the activities that they normally do. They're now doing Zoom yoga, and they're now starting to see that some Dover residents with elderly parents are taking in their elderly parents, bringing them here from wherever they've been staying. So we'll be seeing more seniors than we have at baseline, I would say. The COA has discovered that there's a free food program for veterans in Foxborough at what's the name? The stadium, Gillette Stadium. You can tell I'm not a football fan, but so they have contacted all the senior veterans in town and encouraged them to take advantage of this program. And I would say that to echo what Bob said, we're we're making progress on our protocols for dealing with people who don't want to obey isolation and quarantine recommendations. And we have to work out the kinks in that, but I'm happy to see that we are, and we're all working together to make that happen so that as things get busier, it'll be easier for us. It's always hard the first time. And I think that's all I have to say. Steve, would you add anything?
Oh, that's fine. Great, Kay.
Right, that was a very comprehensive summary. I know you've all been working so hard, and it's an ever evolving situation. And I think we're only at the beginning. And I think the next 2 weeks are just going to be very, very difficult for everyone. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's better than what we're expecting. But I think we need to prepare for the worst. So really do appreciate everything that everybody's doing. And I couldn't agree more. Social distancing is key. And, I was at the supermarket, and I was frustrated by people not, being cognizant that they need to be 6 feet away from other people. And they were sort of in your space, and it was very frustrating to me. At this time, you should have a list, and you should just walk through the supermarket. And if they have what you need, you get it. If they don't, you move on. And so I do think some people are not really aware, or they haven't quite thought it through. It's the same thing with walking. You see a lot more people walking, and they do sometimes get a little too close. So I think to keep encouraging social distance is really going to be key to us being able to flatten the curve.
Mm-hmm. May I add something else?
You certainly may.
You reminded me that the CDC has just come out with an advisory that people wear cloth masks in public, not surgical masks or N95 masks, but cloth masks. I think the rationale is that that will help to decrease the spread from people who are asymptomatic but infected, and who are capable, therefore, of spreading the virus, even though they don't know they have it. And that's in the papers tonight, and we'll be hearing more about it, and we'll be talking about that as a Board of Health. And something very encouraging that I learned today is that there is a nonprofit company in the Boston area that has developed a system for decontaminating N95 masks for the hospitals. And they're going to be starting to do that. And many of the hospitals saved all the old masks that people have taken off, hoping that this would be possible someday. And it looks like it will be. It's very exciting.
Yeah, that is very exciting. And, the Patriots and the governor today also, I guess they're in China picking up, I think it's 1 million masks. So it's
Yes.
just the whole community is coming together, and some of those masks are going to go to New York City, because it's New York City is just really the heart of the whole epidemic or pandemic in the United States. So they're struggling there. So thank you all for the update. And now we're going to go to item 1.2 on our agenda, and that is to discuss and vote on town meeting public safety emergency recess process. And Mr. Dwelly, you and Mr. Lee are going to be discussing this. I the town clerk is also on the line. Felicia, if you introduce yourself.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, and I would ask people talking to please mute, because that will stop. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we get closer to what would be our normal date for town meeting and for the town elections, and as the governor continues to push dates out as it relates to this issue. It's clear that we are not going to be able to have our town meeting and our town election at their regularly scheduled dates. So this item before you here is a requirement for us to implement before the moderator can postpone town meeting by 30 days from its currently scheduled date. So this action, and I'll let Jim speak to it more in depth in a minute, but this will allow essentially him to start the process of what it would take to postpone town meeting from its present date. I will add that we continue to monitor at the state level legislation that would allow communities to postpone their town meetings even beyond this 30-day postponement that we're going to discuss this evening, very much for the reasons that people are anticipating that it's likely, that we'll be in the situation where we cannot have large gatherings by the end of June. So we'll need to address the situation then, but at least this process this evening will allow us to get started to postpone our currently scheduled town meeting. So Jim, I kick it over to you.
Okay, I'll unmute. First, Chris, let me ask you, I made some changes to the document that you sent me. Are you on board with those changes?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with all of those. So the board has in their packet the red line track changes that you had made. So they're viewing. They have in front of them your version. But I'm comfortable with all the edits and suggestions that you made.
Okay, great. Basically, I tried to make some minor modifications to the protocol that was provided in order to deal with situations where time was of the essence. As the document was originally drafted, it would have required me to consult with 5 or 6 people before I was able to postpone a meeting. And I was concerned that in the future, we might have situations where there's a storm front moving through or some other emergency that I would not have time to consult with 6 individuals. So I changed it so that I would be required to consult with the chair of the Board of Selectmen and the police chief, who is also our emergency management director, and left it to my discretion whether I should consult with several other town officials. Now, obviously, in a situation like this, I am going to consult with anybody who is happy to talk to me, because we have a lot of time to think about how we should be dealing with this problem going forward. And in fact, most of the people who are on tonight will be receiving, people who are members of the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen and the town clerk, will be receiving emails from me with a questionnaire that has the questions that are summarized in the protocol with respect to postponing town meeting. I'm glad that, Chris, that you mentioned the possibility that we will be postponing this again. I think it's very likely. The authority that I have under Section 10A, Chapter 39, only allows me to postpone it for 30 days. And that would take us out to June 1st. At that point, I think that I can postpone it again, although the law is a little bit ambiguous. And I don't know whether the legislatures had a chance to cure that ambiguity. Have they, Chris?
Not yet.
They have not. And the other piece related to that is another 30 gets us essentially right to the end of the fiscal year, and they'll need to provide towns with an ability to continue to spend without having an appropriation deliberated on and voted on by town meeting before the end of the fiscal year.
Right. Thank you, Chris. So I think that I have the authority to further delay it out to the end of June. But then, as Chris points out, the question arises, whether we could simply cancel it and continue with the same budget or have some other procedure in place to allow the town to move into the next budgetary year. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I would not be at all surprised if it turns out that we cannot have a meeting at all during the month of June. And I look forward to seeing how the legislature is able to help us with that problem. With that, that's really the primary objective of the protocol, was to give me some flexibility if it's an emergency and time is of the essence, and to at the same time give me authority to consult with a number of people if time is not, if we are not under time pressure, so that I can make a more informed decision. And then with respect to the declaration, it's simply meeting the requirements of the state statute. And at the end of the declaration, where we're postponing the meeting until June 1st, I am stating that it is possible that there will be further postponements, simply to signal to people that it's quite likely that there will be further postponements. Technically, I cannot make this declaration until June 1st. So I think that it would be very helpful that we tell everybody that this is coming, and it's simply a matter of dotting the i's and crossing the t's under the current current statutory authority that forces me to postpone my formal declaration until right before town meeting. But everybody can assume with 100% certainty that we will not be meeting on June 1st. That's the only thing that I can say with any degree of assurance. And let me mute myself now, and you can ask questions if you like. Thank you.
So based upon our bylaws, if town meeting, I know it's not going to happen June 1st, but if town meeting were to happen June 1st, when do we have to have open hearing by? Does that have to be a month before, 2 weeks before, or is there no requirement?
Chris, do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer it?
If you know the answer, Jim, yeah.
I wasn't able, oh, there we go. I wasn't able to find anything in the bylaw when I took a quick look through. I've had several discussions with Andy Ursetti, the chair of the Warrant Committee. And in a perfect world, we would like to try to have the open hearing at least 2 weeks before town meeting in order to give the Warrant Committee time to assimilate the additional data that they would gather during the open hearing and prepare their presentations to town meeting. So I think that as a practical matter, we would like to have a 2-week lead. But certainly, given the exigencies that we're dealing with, I think that it would be possible to function with even a shorter time gap between the open hearing and the town meeting, so we could have a higher degree of assurance that the open hearing could be conducted without jeopardizing anybody's health.
Well, that makes sense. Has the Warrant Committee given any thought to maybe doing open hearing remotely, or is that just not a possibility for such a meeting?
I wanted to make sure, am I? Okay, I'm having trouble with my unmute button. I think they are thinking about that. I think there are some logistical issues that Felicia has also been thinking about a little bit in terms of our ability to hold public hearings via Zoom or some other program or app that we could use. And we'll see if they're, what level of comfort we can attain in possibly holding the open meeting in a remote sort of situation or context.
No, Felicia, do you want to comment at all about the material that Jim went over and the process?
Jim and I have had several conversations, and I think we're on the same page Jim, Chris, and I, and I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense. I would like to see the open hearing a couple of weeks before the meeting because I think it's more helpful for people. They can be more prepared when we go into the town meeting. But right now I hate to say it, a little premature even thinking about that, but hopefully everybody's getting their ducks in a row so that we can work on that when it's appropriate.
No, I completely agree, and I think, you know, the way things are presented makes a lot of sense because this is an ever-changing environment, and we need to be able to be flexible, and we need to give you the authorization to make decisions without having to consult with 6 individuals. So I think the way this has been drafted is very good. So I don't have any additional comments on it. Bob or John?
No, I went over it a couple times. I think it's good. I like the fact that you bring into the fact if we don't have time, sort of an emergency process that would apply. I think that's terrific. We should do more of that at the state level.
John, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Robin. And Jim, thank you very much. Very thorough, very well done, in agreement with what Bob and Robin have stated, that in these cases, time is of the essence, and this is absolutely the right thing to do. The one thing I would just add, and I was thinking about this with regards to Dr. Peterson's comments, Robin, is that, you know, when you're here, Denise as well, speak of the things that are being done on the state level. One of the things that really makes me feel really good about the job that everybody in this conversation tonight has done is the town of Dover has resources that many other cities and towns don't have. And it's because we have been prudent and prepared and really have done a lot of the things that are necessary. And I think the things that Jim has brought up and Chris has brought up earlier are representative of that. So I think it's well done, Jim, and I'm completely on board with it. Thank you.
So if there's no further discussion, I guess I will make a motion and I vote to adopt the town's emergency protocol, which follows the requirements of General Law, Chapter 39, Paragraph 10A1 for a 10AI for a town meeting public safety emergency recess.
Second.
All in favor, and we have to do this by roll call. So I'll start. I, Robin Hunter.
Bob Springett, aye.
John Jeffries, aye.
So it passes. Thank you very much for all your hard work on this, Jim, Chris, Felicia. We really appreciate it. And Andy Orsetti as well. So we are moving to item 1.3 on our agenda this evening, and that's to discuss and vote on postponing the annual town election. So that goes without saying, if the town meeting has to get pushed out, so does the town election. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one is a little bit more easier to implement based on a recent act by the governor and by the legislature a few weeks ago, which essentially grants municipalities the authority to postpone the 2020 municipal elections in the Commonwealth to a date no later than June 30th. So all this takes is a vote of the Board of Selectmen this evening. So in conversations, as Jim had mentioned earlier, and as Felicia has mentioned earlier, as well as with the warrant chair, you know, we're anticipating or we're planning for moving town meeting to June 1st and then keeping the town election 2 weeks thereafter, which would be June 15th. So where we are this evening, we'd ask the board to consider moving or postponing the annual town election from its current date in May to Monday, June 15th, 2020.
So do we want to specifically provide a date, or do we want to say something like no later than June 30th to give us flexibility?
You could not put a date on there if you wanted. And if, it turns out that for some reason we want to move, town meeting later than what we anticipated. So you do have that option, but we did propose to the board June 15th at this point. But I'll let Felicia Hoffman, our town clerk, chime in on that point.
Thanks, Chris. The reason primarily that we picked June 13th is because in our bylaws, it talks about our election within a fortnight after the meeting. So we've picked that date based on hopefully a June 1 town meeting. Obviously, if the town meeting moves, we move the election again, but that's why we came up with that date at that time.
So does it make sense then to use that date, or should we say that town election will be held a fortnight after town meeting in compliance with our bylaws, just to give us maximum flexibility, if you think that makes sense. If not, we can just do the motion to June 15th.
I think it really doesn't matter. If you would prefer not to put a date, then put in sort of a fortnight type of thing. That's fine. I think either way, if we have to move town meeting again, we'll have to move the election. So whatever you feel most comfortable with, as long as Chris agrees that legally it will work.
Chris?
Legally, it will work. You can do no later than June 30th, and then if it does change, we just make the announcement publicly, and it doesn't require the board to take another vote. So if that's the direction the board would like to head, that's certainly acceptable.
Okay, Bob, you have a comment?
Yeah, let me see if I'm good with that. When we first mapped this out a couple of weeks back, literally what we did was we took what we have in the normal processes and then just shifted it a couple of weeks. So we sort of kept the same timeline between open hearing, town meeting, and then the town election. So it's sort of whatever's fine, really. A fortnight after town meeting is great. That's okay.
But no later than June 30th.
Yeah, right. If you can guarantee me that.
John, do you have a preference, or?
No, I'm perfectly fine with that. I was just hoping, Madam Chair, that Bob could go back to 3rd or 4th grade and remind us all how a fortnight came about.
Well, when I was talking to Willie, he and I were discussing how you talk about 14 days. It wouldn't fit into his sonnet. That's how it was.
All right, so if that's the case, then I'm going to make a motion, and so the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dover, acting pursuant to the Act granting authority to postpone 2020 municipal elections in the Commonwealth and increase voting options in response to the declaration of emergency to respond to COVID-19 enacted on March 23rd, 2020, and following consultation with local election officials and the town administrator as to logistics and feasibility, moves one, to postpone the annual municipal election from May 18th, 2020 to a fortnight following town meeting, but no later than June 30th, 2020, and to authorize and direct the town clerk and town administrator to take all actions required by the Act to implement the vote of this motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I will then again take the vote by a roll call. Robin Hunter, yes.
Bob Springett, yes.
John Jeffries, yes.
So the motion passes. Thank you all. Now we're going to move to item 1.4 on our agenda. And this is the Owner's Project Manager Subcommittee and recommendation for the OPM selection. And is that you again, Mr. Chris? Yep.
It is. Thank you, Madam Chair. I had kept this on the agenda as a placeholder, hoping that we would make it in time, but we have not made it in time. There are still some revisions being reviewed by the two sides' legal teams, and just, things are unfortunately a little bit slow in this day and age. So I'll have it on the agenda for our next meeting, and hopefully we'll have a recommendation for you at that point.
Right. I mean, things are just taking a little bit longer with people working remotely. I'm finding things just take longer for some reason. So I completely understand. So the next item on the agenda is the presentation by Retrofit, IT Infrastructure Security Assessment. And I think we have somebody from Retrofit on the line this evening, or participating in the call, two people that I don't recognize. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris, to introduce them.
Thank you. Yes. So Jacqueline and Jeremy, it looks like, are with us this evening, and they're going to provide the board and the community with a quick update on the work that they've been doing over the past few months, shoring up our IT infrastructure, and making sure that our networks and our data and our workstations are secure. This work has come out of the work from the TAB. As you'll recall, we started the year by doing a core IT infrastructure assessment, really a soup to nuts assessment of our environment. And one of the first things that came out of that, one of the most critical things that came out of that, was to make sure that our environment was secure. So Retrofit, we had contracted with Retrofit, both for that IT infrastructure assessment, as well as the implementation of the security work that they're going to update you on this evening. So a lot of the stuff is in place, and we just wanted to give them an opportunity to provide you and the community with a quick update of what they've done to date.
Okay, thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you both for joining, and we're going to turn it over to you. But you're...
So, Madam Chair, I'll step in. I'm not sure if Jackie's having some audio problems right now. Madam Chair, Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, thank you for letting us come today and present kind of an update as to where we are with, the assessment, and then some of the implementation of the security that we've put in, and kind of, where we see the next stage and some of the findings. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I can't share the presentation.
Chris has to allow you to share the presentation.
Oh.
I'll just I'll bring it up. I thought we had already had this resolved, but let me just pop it open. I'll share my screen and then let you guys just run through. So, Jeremy, if there's anything that you just want to speak to while I bring this up, please do.
Yeah. So while Chris brings that up, overall the assessment and locking down the infrastructure went fairly smoothly. We did find a few holes that we wanted to button up pretty quickly as we went through, which we've done. We saw a fair amount of activity as we were going live. In one of the slides, you'll see, we had over 7,000 alerts in the first 2 months that we were actually live. And those are different activities that we saw. So as we go backwards just a little bit, on page 2 really talks about security. And what we wanted to do was provide the town some quick, immediate security from external threats. It's no secret that people are out trying to break into town and municipalities. So we installed a SIM solution. Chris, I think you have the wrong slide up. That's the.
This is Jackie's screen.
Oh, Jackie has the wrong slide up. Jackie, that's the assessment slide. That's not the update. Let me keep going through it, see she finds the right one. So really the phase one was, securing the environment. We installed a SIM security solution town-wide. It goes on all of the servers, the firewalls, end user devices. We look at patching, make sure everything's up to date on patching. We've upgraded the antivirus on all of the endpoints to be Sophos Intercept X. We put Cisco Umbrella, which does a lot of web host testing. So as people click on links and emails, it's actually checking the link before it lets it go out to that web page, which cuts down a lot on the malware that comes in. Thank you, Jackie. That's the right page. The other two big things that we did was we closed RDP. RDP is uncontrolled remote access into the town environment. That's one of the #1 ways that bad actors are getting into the environment these days. And then we took one other step and we implemented security features on the firewalls itself to start blocking foreign networks that we're actively trying to get in. On the next page, Jack, if you go down to page 2, we talked a little bit about this SIM. It's on all of the endpoints. And what it does is it allows for us to have immediate rapid response and action to block foreign connections, block unauthorized connections that are coming in. We do know that they are hitting every day. The quote unquote blacklist that we create and block is growing. Bad actors, typically once they start realizing that we're blocking, and I'll pick on Russia for a minute, a Russian IP or all Russian IP addresses, because Dover has no business doing business with Russia. They quickly move over to another country, sometimes it's a US trying to get in, and we pick those up and block those. We also look at all the activities on end user computers, and this isn't, big brother in the sky, but it does machine learning and human learning. So we know what's going on in the computer. So if the accountant is in everyday processing and he works 9 to 5, and then all of a sudden on Sunday night at 1 a.m. he logs onto the computer and starts doing activities, we get alerted. Sometimes it's okay because we know that they're doing work. It can lock the system down. If he starts copying files off onto a USB drive, we monitor all of that, and based off of certain rules, we will get notified to make sure that we can block any access to prevent loss of data. So it's a nice tool to have out there. Day-to-day activity, nobody realizes that it's actually looking at and understanding what they're doing for the day-to-day job. It's not reading people's emails, it's just understanding how they use their computer. Based off of the SIM, on the next page, Jackie, please. We received over 7,100 alerts in the first 2 months alone. Anonymous logons, rogue software installations, and these are software installations that users may never know that they're doing, right? You click on a link and all of a sudden you have adware on your computer. Some of it could be malicious. So we're able to automatically block those in the background and prevent that from running. Remote interactive logon sessions. These are attempted bad actors trying to log on to a computer, via a click of a link, through the Wi-Fi. If somebody was able to gain through the Wi-Fi, there's different ways that comes in. USB activity. It says new IP reputation lookups. That's looking at every address that comes into the network. Email addresses, the IP addresses, you go out to a website, we're looking at all of those. And we're blocking them actively now for the town to make sure that the bad actors can't get back in. Since the 2 months is over, we've seen a significant decrease in the alerts, especially the IP blocking that has happened. You guys are in a relatively good spot at this point from the outside coming in, which is really what we expected to see. Took a little bit longer to really see that downward trend that I like to see, only because of some of the other work that we were doing, locking down computers. On the next page is a dashboard that we look at. It's up on our boards 24 hours a day. And what we like to see is all green. And this is just some of the things that we're monitoring live. And we talked a little bit about it in the last slide. A bad IP address comes in, let's say Russia again. This board will actually turn red and quickly makes a noise. We go and look at it, make sure that 1, it was blocked, 2, anything happened to your server, your network, your firewalls, to make sure that you are protected. On the next page, we talk a little bit about things that we've already completed. So we've put remote monitoring and management on all of your desktops and your servers. We updated all the patching. Over 90% are up and running. That fluctuates week to week based off of reboots, people on vacation, and such. We're also now patching all third-party applications, 7-Zip, Adobe, Flash, Chrome, etc., that the town uses day to day. We've provided secure remote access for employees via both VPN as well as Splashtop through our RMM tool. It's 2-factored for the users to get in. It is government rated and encryption, so it's one of the most secure ways to do remote work, especially in this time of COVID-19. We did see a spike in alerts when we first went live, mostly disk space on computers, Windows services that weren't working correctly, just causing general slowness, lagging, different various things we were able to clean up. And along with that, we removed a fair amount of system warnings, both on the desktops as well as the server, trying to give everybody a better user experience. On the next slide, the AV web security. We talked about, we upgraded the AV, put Sophos Intercept X on all the systems. That's been completed. We blocked over 400 activities in the first month alone. And a lot of them were, bad links, firearms, pornography, tourist sites, etc. And the reason why some of those sites are really bad is they have what they call that pop software, right? The adware that pops up. People want to clip coupons, it loads onto your browser bars. Some of those are backdoors into your computer. So catching those as they install and blocking them is very important. And then DNS protection. All outbound traffic now, whether it's wireless or wired, goes through our DNS protection software. We're checking every link against bad known sites and blocking those that, you go out and it says, there's a virus out there, will block that from coming down. Over 10,000 links were blocked. Most of them were hidden within websites. You may never know that there's hidden links that are firing up when you launch a web page. So we're actually actively blocking those, and there were over 10,000 of those in the first month. On the next page, firewall update. We have limited external access with RDP, which again is the most typical way that bad actors access your network. We enabled and limited international IP blocking. That's key to keep the foreigners out. And the SIM is monitoring every one of those connections right now. If there is a foreign IP that hits, it automatically blocks, as well as blocks it on the servers. We've seen that decrease to a normal limited level at this point, which we consider typical. Every day, there's people that are just doing broad scans over the network, trying to find any way they can to get in, whether it's a town or city, a private company, or even people's houses. They're just looking at any way that they can get in and cause, havoc. So we're down to a minimum amount there, and pretty satisfied with the traffic. Ongoing activities on the next page. We continue to fine tool and look at the security updates as they come out, making sure all your systems are patched. The government comes out with notifications on ways to protect networks. One came out last night, early this morning on Zoom. We've shared that over to Chris and team this afternoon. So we're always looking at that, making sure that the networks are patched, upgraded, and whatnot. We do look at every security activity on the board when they come in. We work very closely with Diana to provide remote access to all the employees, and we're always strengthening the web filtering. That seems to be the biggest way that bad actors are getting in these days, along with email threats. All of these activities are really happening in the background with no interaction and really no impact to the end users. With our tools, we're able to move in and out and make sure that, every system is secured and updated accordingly. And I haven't heard that the end users have been impacted, which is the main goal, to make sure that they're productive, especially while they're in the office. What's next? As we continue to go down this road, we're in the process of upgrading Windows 10, Windows 7 devices to Windows 10. Increase the memory of anything that's less than 5 years old. Upgrade Windows 7 to Windows 10 in place if we can. If not, we're going to replace those systems. And the big reason there is Windows 7, as some of you know, went end of life in January. So Microsoft is no longer supporting and providing updates for security. So we want to get those off the network as quickly as we can. And then we're doing additional work on the network, upgrading the firewalls, enhancing the security with geo-blocking, creating a town-wide network. So all the buildings will be able to talk to one another, easily share information back and forth. 4G auto failover, so if the town hall was to go down, Comcast, had issues, it could automatically fail over to a 4G. Benefit, you continue to take credit cards and payments, things like that. Upgrading your wireless network, increase security filtering, better coverage, and really a single support interface to manage all of them. So it's very quickly. And then last, looking at all of the switches, moving them into a managed switch capacity so that we can control the different parts of the network and segregate traffic. You know, one of the big ones is when I went through the Center of Aging building, there were switches that were open that anybody could really plug into. And, you know, if there's any HIPAA medical documentation that's going on or being documented on a computer, you know, it's really to help protect the town from having any exposure from somebody plugging in a random computer and accessing your network. And we can, you know, disable those networks and those network ports, you know, remotely and make sure that nobody can get in. So that's kind of just a high level where you were, what we've done in the first couple months of working and kind of where we're going in the next step. So I'll pause and open ourselves up for questions.
I appreciate the very comprehensive overview. I know Bob has spent a lot of time working with all of you, and it's great to see how much has been accomplished over, you know, really a short period when you think about it. I think it's been 7 months now that we started this. You know, our goal was to make sure that all of our employees had the tools that they needed to do their job, because we recognized that we were running different operating systems and people couldn't share information. And it appears to me that has been addressed. One of the questions I have from your presentation is, do we have computers that are over 5 years old? And if we do, should we have some kind of a policy in place to ensure, because a 5-year-old computer is pretty old.
Yeah, so there are some computers that are over 5 years old. We are working with Chris and Diana right now. They've been identified. There is a plan in process to upgrade and replace those and move them from Windows 7, obviously, up to Windows 10 to the most current.
And then also to put in place a sort of replacement schedule as well, so we don't get it back into this situation.
Right. No,
Yeah, as we come out of this, and you know, things are, you know, quote unquote stable, upgraded, comes into the whole management of, you know, all of the systems from a network, servers, and workstations, and looking, is it a 6-year lifespan so that it can be scheduled out, budgeted, it's known, you know, 3, 4, 5 years out, you know, what the IT costs are, you know, from a systems perspective, so there's no surprises.
Now, as far as servers go for the town, do we have actual hardware, or are we using virtual servers that are in a cloud?
You have a couple physical servers within Town Hall. We will be upgrading the operating systems on those very shortly as well. Again, keeping them in compliance and up to date.
Okay. Chris or Bob, would you like to add? Both of you are, you know, much more involved in this.
Well, Robin, if I mean, it's, I mean, from where we were to where we are is a night and day change. You know, I know this sounds like technical gobbledygook, but all of these things was absolutely necessary to provide a foundation and to secure the work that we do in the town. It's a critical first step. You could see some of the numbers, and it just should give everybody from the town sort of a little bit of assurance that that level of activity is has been taken care of. Obviously, it needs to be monitored, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think the next step, when we go into sort of actually looking at the tools that people use to work, replace the older computers, get onto an operating system that's actually supported. I mean, I think that'll be much more dramatic impact on our employees. Chris?
Oh, I have nothing more to add, Bob. That was a great summary. The only last thing I'd mention as it relates to retrofit is they talked about the remote access, and they were really helpful for us as we were planning and implementing our remote participation infrastructure and needs for town staff, so that we were able to shut our buildings down to the public and then further shut our buildings down to reduce the number of people in our buildings so that they could continue to do their work, but do their work safely from home. So I appreciate all the effort and the assistance in that regard.
So I would just want to end by saying, Jackie and Jeremy, thank you very much for your help. It's been for us, it's been, again, like I said, night to day, and we appreciate all that you've done for us. I didn't know you were so involved in the Zoom work, but thank you.
Yes, thank you both. And this was a great overview, and so we really appreciate it, and we look forward maybe in a few months to an update on what's been done. So thank you all.
Thank you. Happy to come back.
All right, so we're moving on to item 1.6 on our agenda, which is the Board of Selectmen's updates. And I do not have any rail trail updates. I did take a look at the upcoming agendas, and they looked reasonable to me. I really don't have much to add. I'll ask each of you, John and Bob, if you have anything to add. John?
No, nothing. We're, again, one of the things I would mention though, Robin, with just regards to our last segment, was Retrofit, for those that don't know, have been a part of the town and a part of the town's process for many years. And this segment, which began, as you mentioned, 7 months ago, the assessment portion of that began over a year ago. So they have been in and involved with the town for quite a while.
No, that's a good point. Thank you. Bob, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Working on with all the town folks at BOH on the COVID preparedness stuff has kept me busy, and Chris did a pretty good job earlier. So that's where I've been spending my time.
Right, and I would just once again like to thank the staff for the regular updates, for the website is constantly updated. I'm one of your followers on Facebook. I also get little Twitter updates, and it's really great to get information, that's accurate and timely. So really appreciate the efforts, and it was nice to see some of the little pictures, like to see the COA, the card, the card writing program that they had in place. So I think it really does give those of us who are on social media a sense of what's going on in the community, since I have been locked up in my house for 17 days now.
But you look marvelous.
I get out every once in a while. I have to prepare myself to go to the supermarket. So with there being no other updates, Chris, I'll turn it over to you to give us an update on what you've been doing other than COVID-19 and keeping the website and all the social media accounts up to date and managing the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we continue to move forward with our day-to-day as much as possible. So we're continuing to make sure that we've got all of the key projects that the board has identified at the beginning of the year, such as reorganizational efforts, financial policy development, senior tax relief, and everything like that continues to be worked on. In addition, we've been working diligently on collaboratively coming up with ideas with staff on what are some things that we could also do as people have time available, given that, where the day-to-day interaction with residents or constituents has now minimized. It allows us to be able to proactively take care of some of the things that we would have maybe taken care of this summer or even next year. So we're looking at things like peer reviews on websites and peer reviews on policy development, and generating 3 top ideas on what you could do differently to deliver even better customer service to the community. So as a team, we've been working on, and we'll continue to work on these things over the next couple of weeks as we work remotely. But it's really been a great time to be able to address some of these things. So I certainly appreciate from the board's comments the kudos to staff. I'd sent staff an email today about reminders about remote work, and it has been I cannot say enough about how incredible every single staff member has been in banding together to really get us to the good point that we're at here. And they have done so professionally and without hesitation. And it is just, I can't say enough and speak enough to the Herculean effort that they have given. So that is much appreciated. The only other update that I want to mention for the board at this point is COVID related. And I had just sent over to the warrant committee some of the materials for the Blue Book as they continue to work toward getting that compiled and wanting to get that out to the community for whenever we end having a town meeting. And one of the things that I'd mentioned to them that I wanted to mention to the board now, as well as to the community, is in working with the finance team and looking at our budget, looking at our cash flow to date, looking at our financial reserves, and then looking at what our projections are for revenue based on or our projected revenue for next year, both in terms of local receipts and state aid. The town of Dover still remains in a very, very, very strong financial position. So at this date, we have no concerns as it relates to not being able to continue to pay our bills and close out FY20, given our cash flow that we have coming in. As it relates to FY21, I think the budget that has been presented is a good budget, and one that really didn't stretch the limits of where we should be, so that we're able to absorb any changes that may come. We have buffered a little bit in our local receipts. We've dropped down our local receipt estimates for what we estimate to bring in next year by an additional $150,000. These are things such as motor vehicle excise, permit fees, license fees, registration fees. And we did that even though we budgeted those lines conservatively. We wanted to drop it down a little bit. There's going to be some small impact to the community. But that reduction of $150,000 doesn't change the bottom line of the excess levy capacity that we're anticipating having or going into the budget. It just allows us a little bit of additional flexibility in that line. We don't want to be, we don't want to overestimate those lines, assuming that, people, if the economy continues to go down, that, people won't be buying cars and people won't be pulling permits, perhaps, to put additions on their homes and things like that. So it's just smart, prudent financial budgeting on the financial team's side. But that's all to say is that we can continue to confidently present the budget that we had initially presented to the board and the community as it stands moving forward. So I just wanted to update the board on that work that we've been doing and where we are on that front.
So I appreciate that, and it is very prudent to look at it again. I mean, nobody really knows what the long-term impact will be from COVID-19 or how long it's going to last. So it is prudent to anticipate. In the last 3 weeks, we've seen the economy come to a halt, And we just don't know how much longer that's going to last. So I think that was really prudent. Bob or John, do you have any comments?
I would like to thank Denise for participating in our meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Next time, do we get video, Denise? She's not answering me.
No,
Oh, she
I'm
will.
here. I'm here, Robin. Next time video.
Okay. Well, we really do. And, you know, I really appreciate everything you're doing and all the information that you provide us. It's extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Robin, I'd like to just second that and say a special thank you to Denise, her team, her staff, the people who are working for us at the State House. And, you know, just to echo what Chris said earlier, our assistant town moderator, David Haviland, 2 years ago, we were having a conversation at the moderators meeting, and he said something to the effect of, we've been in financially a bull market for, at that time, 8 years, and you didn't know when it would end or how it would end, but you just want to be prepared for when it does end. And so to Chris's point earlier, we are in a very, very good position financially. We are able to absorb a lot of these shocks. And I think we're going to be extremely well positioned over the next several months to be able to ride this out and provide every level of service that our constituents, our family and friends need in the town of Dover. So thank you all for your support, your work, and I just add one thing: your patience. This is a period of time that no one has really ever been through, and we're going to learn a lot from it. We're going to learn a lot about technology. There's going to be a lot of opportunity to really take these lessons that we learn and deliver better services and hopefully look at the things that we have done well and continue to do well. So thank you all for your help and your participation tonight.
You know, I think the silver lining in all of this is how the community has gotten together. And it's not just the Dover community, it's the community at large. You're really seeing people pull together. And, you know, that is for me the silver lining. All right, well, Rio thinks we should adjourn the meeting.
Rio entered right on time, by the way, just like last week.
Right. He's giving me the puppy stare like, it should be over, Mom. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting for this evening.
Second.
All in favor? From the chair, aye.
Aye.
Bob Springett, aye.
John Jeffries, aye.
All right, well, that adjourns the meeting. Thank you all. Thank you, Kate and Chris and Mona, for getting this all done. And Kate, I still don't know why it worked at 5 o'clock and not at 6:30, but we tried.
It came off pretty well.
Right. So thank you all.